Liaison Committee and Chair of the Common Strategic Policy Review Panel.
Deputy Helen Miles, Vice President of Scrutiny Liaison Committee and Chair of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel.
Deputy Catherine Curtis, I'm Chair of the Children, Education and Home Affairs Panel.
Deputy Alex Curtis, Member of the Environment, Housing and Infrastructure Scrutiny Panel.
And online with us,
Deputy Montfort-Tadier, Chair of Economic International Affairs Scrutiny.
thank you, Minister.
Conatar Bandijo, Minister for Infrastructure.
And Andy Skate, Chief Officer for Infrastructure and Environment.
Tristan Dodd, Associate Director for Transport, Highways and Infrastructure.
Thank you. And Minister, we'll start with the question, in what ways does your department's budget contribute directly to the delivery of the 13 common strategic policy priorities?
Well, a number of ways. We provide the services for things to happen, basically. So our budget really is essential in terms of ensuring that traffic can move, sewage is moving, and waste is processed. We then look at capital investment, and so we're helping the affordable homes that were passed, the land that was rezoned in the Bridging Island Plan. We're doing a lot of enabling works to ensure that those properties and existing homes, I should say, and existing homes can connect to the mains drains. And in terms of St Helier, we are investing in public realm initiatives, which fit in with both the retail and the visitor strategies. So we see that as vital work, and perhaps we'll talk about that afterwards.
Yeah.
So in a whole range of areas, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to talk about 4 regions as well.
Thank you. And are there any common strategic policy priorities within your remit that are at risk of delay or non-delivery due to budgetary or resource constraints?
I don't believe there are. I think we've had to be restrained in terms of increasing our charges because of the pressure on the cost of living. And in fact, we've now started working with the bus provider to promote the benefits of a monthly bus pass being £55 compared to £172 for a monthly parking permit. And I've been trying to encourage our partner to do that for 12 months, and we've now started to do that with adverts on social media and the back of a double-decker bus. So you might say, well, that's going to reduce your revenue in car parks. Well, potentially it will. But we've got 44% of bus riders are doing so on a concessionary fare, and we need more people on buses paying for fares to help us get more concessionary fares. So, yeah.
And can you tell us the main financial workforce or capacity risk for CSP delivery in your area?
Well, I think, if you look at our risks, and I think the risks are managed reasonably well within our area. But funding clearly both for revenue to ensure that we can keep doing what we have to do, but also capital funding so that we can provide much needed new infrastructure, particularly around the sewage network is absolutely key.
I mean, for one side to say they had a capital budget, which you need to deliver, and you do have also the maintenance budget within each department, as you said, that your remit is going across almost all the CSP. How is decision-making process happening? How much working groups do you sit on? How do you work with other ministers to ensure that there is a balance between budget allocations?
Well, clearly, it is about balance, and I'm sure Deputy Alex Curtis will be fed up with me talking about the fact that we have to prioritise, and therefore, when it comes to property, for example, we have to focus on the must-do. So to ensure that we meet legislation to ensure buildings are safe. Which doesn't necessarily mean that they're painted as much as we'd like them to be painted. But, in addition to the council ministers, I'm on the regeneration steering group, so we talk about capital initiatives there. We've got a sports ministerial group where I work with health, education and children's ministers. We meet quarterly in that forum. And that's really helped us to finally gain access to the school's estate. I would say it's taken us a long time to get there, but we are there now, and really excited about the opportunities. Also work with health, home affairs and education on the casualty reduction parts. Work with the Environment Minister on things around the carbon neutral roadmap, for example, and we meet fairly frequently, the two of us. And then, as I mentioned, the public realm, well, that's supporting the economy department, both the retail and visitor strategies. So work across the piece really with all ministers to varying degrees.
Thank you. Common strategic priorities narrowed its scope down to 12 core priorities, later expanded by amendment to 13 for the carbon neutral implementation. Do you think narrowing that focus to a limited set of priorities has worked? Do you actually see that there's been some improvement to delivery?
Yeah, I subscribe to the to get things done really, and once you've done something, move on to the next thing rather than trying to do everything and do nothing. So I really subscribe to that approach. You know, is it the right 13? We could be here all afternoon debating that. We've got 13 priorities. I'm pleased that the 13th was added. But yeah, I do think by giving things focus, you actually do get things done. And you know, Broad Street's a great example where that road's been closed for 5 years. We've been talking about making it pedestrianised, and now we're actually doing it. So I think by focusing the mind, you can do things, and we do that within the department as well. We really try to put in dates that we can achieve and deliver and move on, because there's nothing worse than I was talking to someone earlier today about a project that started 11 years ago and is no closer to it and completed than it was 11 years ago, which beggars belief.
In terms of funding allocation for your priorities,
Yeah.
as a minister around the COM table, do you feel that you've had sufficient voice and been able to get exactly what you need?
Yes and no. I'm sure you're going to hear from all ministers that they would like more and to do more. But have I been able to get my voice heard? I believe I have. Have I raised the profile of infrastructure in the last 18 months? I believe I have done. And there's a huge amount of work still to be done. But the very fact that we're starting major projects now is as a result of being heard. And you know, we can talk about health, we can talk about education, but if you can't have sewers working, then neither of those are going to work either. So, you know, we really have tried our hardest, supported by the team. I have to say, we've got some great people in our team to raise the profile, and you know, we're trying to do things differently. It's not a popular role being infrastructure minister, but thankfully I'm not worried about that too much. You know, we advertise 5 years in advance when we're going to do major roadworks, and people see it as a surprise when it happens. We're now telling people that if you go through a road closure sign, you could be fined up to £1,000. We don't want to fine anybody, but equally we don't want to spend £200,000 on employing staff to ensure that the roads are safe for people to work on. So,
Whereabouts have you had to compromise to allow those big increases in health and education?
Well, I think, you know, I'm sure the man sitting to my right would tell me that I've got to do more work in terms of resurfacing roads. And we're actually looking at how we can do that, if we can do it differently, more efficiently. We've got colleagues going to see what they do in Guernsey, which they do reconstruct the roads to the level that we do when we reconstruct a road. And I have to say, the reconstruction piece is fantastic. The micro asphalt is an unnecessary evil at the moment, and we're looking to see whether we can cover the road surface with something else which is less impact on particularly cyclists and motorcyclists. So we're trying to do things there and recycle some of the road planings. So I'm sure Trish has probably got a long shopping list, but I would imagine that resurfacing the roads would be higher.
You know,
I'm not going to bore you with detail.
Minister, we ask all ministers, because you as a member of the Council of Ministers, we know that to cover some of the common strategic policy priority, the decision was made to reduce grant into the Social Security Fund. Next year, it was reduction for 74 million per year, including 17 million for infrastructure. What are your views on using Social Security Fund, reduction in grant to Social Security Fund?
Yeah, well, I think it's a very different question to taking money out of the Social Security Fund. So I wouldn't support taking money out, but I'm quite relaxed about not putting as much in. So if you're asking me, should we take money out of the fund to do things, I would probably have a different view to putting less money in. That would be mine.
But if we'll continue this type of spending till 2035, I think was mentioned that the fund will go, and there are areas that are ongoing. What was discussion around the Council of Ministers when we introduced him something that public expecting us to deliver going forward, but we don't have funding mechanism after 4 years?
Yeah, so I think it is a challenge. My preference would be that it was used on capital funding rather than revenue projects. But we have to get on and do some of the things that we haven't done. You know, it's not in my area, but I fully subscribe to the additional hours for young children, because I see people at my drop-ins who, quite frankly, are pulling their hair out as to they can't go back to work, they can go back to work, etc., etc. So I don't think these things are nice to have, but I do think we need to get on and do some things, because we've just delayed and delayed for so long, and that's successive governments. I know we went through COVID, which was difficult for everyone, but I do think I'd have a very different view if we were taking money out of the fund, but I'm relaxed about putting less into the fund, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Deputy Tadje?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to move on to some of the other priorities in the key strategic priorities. So, Minister, CSP Priority 11 includes a commitment to deliver a plan to revitalise town. How does Priority 11 align with Priority 8, which is about delivering more affordable homes and confidence for the rental sector? And also, if I can ask you about Priority 12, which is reform of the planning service and sustainable development.
Well, I think if we want to provide affordable homes, particularly in St Helier, where the island plan really targets increased residents, then we have to make St Helier a more pleasant place to live and work and visit. So I think we've seen success with the work we did, Parish of St Helier did in Halkett Street, which we helped to fund. We've seen great success in the New Street area, where we've had at least 5 applications for additional alfresco licences. And we've got to make the town somewhere where people want to come, where people are happy to live. And I think also of people moving into right-sized properties. I know a number of people who have downsized and live at the waterfront, and they love it. We need to encourage more people to downsize and free up homes where there's a lot of capacity. In terms of the planning, you ask about planning. I think, talking to the industry, I think planning has improved. I think, I'm sure my colleague, the Environment Minister, recognises there's more to do, but I do think we've seen an improvement with that. I think we are making progress.
Minister, there was a division, I think, in the last debate last week about what level of expectation town residents can have, certainly when it comes to their own access to a private vehicle, parking space. Has that been a difficulty in this Council of Ministers about a cohesive vision about what town should not only look like, but also what you should expect from St Helier if you're a resident?
Well, I think, I keep using the word choice. And, as a regular bus goer myself, I still rely heavily on my car and not very much on my bike, unfortunately. So it is about choice, and I think I can see both sides of the argument, but we've still got far too many people who live and work in St Helier, 24% of people who drive to work. At half, you're 50% less likely to own a car if you live in St Helier, which is great for those people who can go about their business. But a week ago I was at, and I think I referred to this in my speech, a week ago I was at Brighter Futures, and some of their clients and some of their workers were explaining the challenges that young families had in terms of getting children and shopping, etc., from point A to point B, and I have to subscribe to that. You know, not everybody needs a car, but I think we should be providing more spaces. That doesn't mean to say one space per bedroom or anything like that, but I think we do need to. I think it was the right decision that the Assembly came to.
And kind of, is the vision, I suppose, for what you're trying to do, is that generally shared by council and ministers, and is it something that's supported?
Well, clearly that proposal was supported. You know, in terms of the vision, it's about choice, and it's about making St Helier somewhere where people are comfortable living, working, and visiting. And we have to invest in the product, not only of St Helier but of Jersey itself. You know, I was fortunate to go to a number of French towns and cities in the summer, and we're not reinventing the wheel with what we're trying to do here. It's very successful around the world, not just in Europe, but where you invest in public realm, you generally see fewer vacant shops, you see higher spend in those shops. And we were in Belfast earlier this year at a British Irish Council meeting, and we went a tour around Belfast, and the guide told us, and it's stuck in my mind, people buy from shops, cars don't. And I thought it was a very powerful message that we had from colleagues who work in infrastructure around the British Irish community.
Just to add to what the Minister said, I know Deputy Tadier has got an interest in France and Frank Parliamentary, what's the Parliament Association? APF. We also liaise with colleagues in Saint-Malo and in Ille-Vilaine to see about what they're doing in France with Voiries pour tous, and we've adopted some of their materials, etc. So we tend to learn from both sides of the channel, recognising Jersey's unique situation.
I slightly hesitate to get into too much detail, but when there's clearly a drive to a certain extent to support more cycling in St Helier, so cycling in the island and to St Helier, but when bicycle racks are put up, and I think in particular the two-storey ones, there seems to have been some criticism of the design of those, which isn't really able to hold bicycles sufficiently or give them any stability so you can buckle wheels. I mean, is proper engagement happening with stakeholder groups about what?
Yeah, absolutely.
So between the intention versus the reality of what people are seeing in St Helier.
Absolutely, and that's the first time I've heard the new cycle racks criticised. Perhaps I don't know if the department had any feedback, but we work with key stakeholder groups. We've introduced some 70 new bike parking spaces in St Helier in the last 9 months. We've actually done a video to show people how to use the racks. That's on our social media. We've put bikes on the top rack to show people how to use the racks. And, you know, these racks are commonly seen around the world now. And really it's about getting as much capacity in as small a footprint as possible so we can get more bike racks. And Sand Street's a good example. Before we did the work at Sand Street, it was a bit chaotic, would be how I described it. Now we've got more capacity and people are using them.
Yeah. Thank you. I would like to ask two questions connected to CSP and coming budget. One thing in the CSP, improvements to the central market and the fish market.
Yeah.
Have any funds were allocated what improvements were done in 2025 and what's planned for 2026 for the central market?
Well, I think
and
our
fish
biggest
market?
improvement is to get people onto new leases. I think that's where a lot of our energy has been. because people were on rolling 12 months leases. I don't think we need to spend, I think the figure I was told was £12 million on the market and redeveloping the markets. I think we've got to refresh the markets. The floor needs to be fixed. And I think I've got an update with the Constable of St Helier later this week, I think it's on Thursday, about what work we plan to do in the next 12 months. So I think it's about making them smarter rather than redesigning the whole market complex, which perhaps is some people's view.
Were the
but not
funds
mine.
some allocated in the budget to make them smarter in 2026?
We have got some money in the budget to do some. It would be classed as maintenance work, but it will be improvements at the same time as maintaining it. So the flooring, I would say, is probably one of the worst aspects. We spent a lot of money recently on the roof at the market, making it safe for people to work on the roof. And you remember there was scaffolding there for a long time. We missed a trick, in my opinion, in not painting it at the same time we had the scaffold up, because I would try to do two things at once. But
Okay, and the second thing, you mentioned Halkett Place, which was really a good project, joint project between parish and the government. We did have some allocation for the next 4 years, which didn't come to fruition this year. Do you plan to get this type of joint project between parish and the government in 2026? And if some of the funds that were agreed last year would come towards the parish?
so if I said Halkett Place, I apologise. Halkett Street is where we did the works.
Yeah, Halkett Street, yeah.
So sorry. Yeah, I think not only the government and the parish are working together, but I also would like to see more work done in terms of public and private partnerships. So with one of my other hats on for sport, for example, I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to do more working with the community and getting other people to invest, and we should be seen as enablers in parts. And yeah.
Okay.
A couple more questions on this theme of revitalising town. Part of what we've been talking to ministers today about is how different policies are balanced, how priorities are balanced. And to return to your parking example, you've got multiple competing interests versus keeping fees and charges low, investing in town, revitalising town, and what I'll get onto shortly is the carbon neutral roadmap. And I wanted to drill in specifically on how you've been balancing the policy setting around car park charging. And I think members will know the change you made both to Charles Street originally to make it longer stay and shortening that. I just wondered if you could talk about how you, in a day-to-day setting, specifically around car parking, have balanced these pillars of different CSP priorities.
Yeah, well, it's not easy. I think car parking in Jersey is incredibly good value for money. And then when you look at how many people get free car parking, it's even greater value for money. So it is a challenge, but we do recognise that we're in a challenging time from an expenditure point of view for the public. So that's why we were restrained in increasing our car parking charges. We tried the different times until 10 o'clock initially at Charles Street, because the request came from the business community and I think the theatre community about access to parking to enable people to have dinner and go to shows. What we didn't appreciate was that if you parked at 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock and had dinner, then you could have a problem at 9 o'clock in getting your car. So we listened to the feedback and we amended that to 8 o'clock. And it's the same with weekend parking at Charles Street, where it's we charge differently to other areas, but we're seeing that there's capacity there. And therefore, hopefully the hospitality industry in particular, in the evenings, and hopefully retail, have benefited from those additional spaces.
Okay, so is that an area where actually balancing priorities has worked as a kind of a good activator for delivering a revitalising town?
Probably the wrong person to judge if it's worked or not, but we took feedback from people and we made that change. Should we charge similarly in Minden Place and should we charge similarly in Sand Street? You could argue both ways, I think. Okay.
Yeah. Just a quick question. You mentioned about the bike racks and encouraging people to use their bikes and so on, but a lot of people don't because they find it too dangerous. So is there any funding going into the making safer routes,
Yeah.
especially from the east and so on, because it's been going on for a while, hasn't it?
Well, I think we could do the eastern cycle route very, very cheaply, and we are trying hard. Some people say that we are trying. We've found a route working with interested parties to go from Gorey up to Bagatelle. To make that the best it could be would be to make one road a parish by-road, a no-through road. It's used as a rat run in the morning for people heading into town, and surprisingly it's used as a rat run in the evening for people heading out of town. And to make it safer for people to cycle, if we did the same as happened at Pertwee Lane and made the road a no-through road, we would have a cycle corridor along there very quickly and very efficiently. Fountain Lane's another area which is 2 parish roads, St Harriet and St Saviour, both own parts of the road. And again, if that was made a no-through road, that again would make the thoroughfares in and out of. There's money to do some of the work there. The main project at Bagatelle is to create a footpath in a current field which needs planning permission. And I hope to meet the St Saviour's elected representatives mid-month, next month. To go through where we are with that. So we are investing all the time in terms of planning and design. And each school has got a Safer Routes to School programme and plan. And I think for us, we're trying to get, we saw this in Guernsey where in the playground they've got what I would call the old cycle proficiency marked up in the playground, and we think that's great, and we're trying to encourage schools to adopt that. And we've provided more cycle parking in a number of schools. I think the school that I look to with envy is Lalonde, because I think they do such a great job there with their cycle bus, and I've been out to meet the head teacher and again talk to the pupils and parents that participate in that. And so there's some good examples, but it's back to the point about what can you do with the money you've got available. If you gave us a big wedge of money to spend on Safer Routes to School, we would invest that money. But we can only do what we can each year.
Thank you. We're going to the carbon.
Minister, we're going to move to the carbon neutral roadmap, and in particular because it is a priority in the CSP, and of course the EHI panel is looking forward to its wider budget hearing with you next Monday. So specifically in how the CSP acts as a guide to your decision making and your voice around the Council of Ministers table, could you explain how the carbon neutral roadmap as agreed as a priority influenced the budget arrangements in the budget 2026, so funding for any of your operations from JPH through to transport or any of them with all your hats?
Yeah, so we've got a number of initiatives. I think I mentioned when I was asked about how I worked with the other ministers. We worked with the Environment Minister clearly on this area. In terms of the budget, you know, we've done a number of initiatives. You know, we've done the single-use vapes, which is, I know that's only small, but it's a significant step around the single-use vapes. We are trying our hardest. We've got the investment in the Western Bus Gateway, which at peak times will save around 3, 4, 5 minutes per journey, per vehicle journey. And if you've got 50, 70 people on the bus, that's a significant saving by accelerating the Western buses, just as we've done with the Eastern buses going in front of the Palme d'Or Hotel. And so that's a significant investment there in terms of how we get people. People will jump on a bus if it's cheaper, if it's comfortable, and if it's convenient. And I've told you about the price. We get investing, or our partners investing in a new bus fleet, and so we have to make it convenient. So how do we make it convenient? We've got to speed up that process. You know, we got to watch what's happening elsewhere in terms of petrol and diesel vehicles. You know, I remember in a previous life introducing a significant amount of electric vehicles more than 10 years ago, so I'm quite familiar.
I guess, and I know Deputy Taddeo has put his hand up, but so after this kind of question, I'm sure he'll jump in with his supplementary. The kind of question, what we're trying to understand is how the priorities set by the Assembly are reflected through the budget making process and how competing priorities are addressed. And the Minister for Environment, in our hearing with him about half an hour ago, kind of highlighted the ultimate challenge that now it feels like environment and sustainability are the first things to drop off the radar when priorities are needed. And I think, this panel is quite interested to know to what extent have you been able to drive sustainability as a shared responsibility in the budget? Has having the carbon neutral roadmap in the priorities helped change the funding allocations compared to where it might have been? Did you rely on it?
I think I said at the outset, and I wasn't listening to my colleague, but I think having the 13th priority was essential. That's a personal view. I say that as someone who's not won a national award for Green Fleet, so I can talk with a little bit of experience in that area. I think, what strikes me being in government compared to being in business is the time it takes to do things. So if I think of putting solar panels on our public buildings and public land, why has it taken me 18 months to get to where I've got to today, which is close to a signature but not with a signature, to put solar panels on car parks and on schools, for example. And what I want to do is to see the money that we generate, which isn't significant from that, reused so that we can make more of our buildings greener and more efficient. So there's a reluctance in government to ring fence funds, and we're just starting that discussion now to see whether or not any income we generate from solar can be used to provide heat energy pumps and the like.
And in your kind of positioning, do you think using the state's agreed common strategic priorities is a lever to further your cause? Is it an effective method of explaining why you want to hypothecate the money?
Well, it is, because a challenge you've got in Jersey, which is, again, I'm very experienced with, is the low amount of mileage that we do on the island means that it's not easy to make a business case to switch to alternative fuel. So that is a challenge for us. So if you're in the UK or Europe, you could make a business case because using green energy would be cheaper and you'd save money over the lifetime of the vehicle. You've got to extend the lifetime of the vehicle to make it commercially viable. So by having this as a priority of government is a lever that we can use.
Deputy Talia?
Yeah, I mean, so is it fair to say that there's some aspiration in government to address either emission reductions or generally more green initiatives, but actually, I mean, if I take the buses, for example, you mentioned that it's a great idea to say to people it's cheaper to buy a bus pass than it is to pay for a month's parking ticket. But if you get free parking in town, of course, the breaking even point may be completely different for you. Similarly, if your experience of using the bus is such that if you get a bus at 4 o'clock and you're not at the bus station, but you're at the second or third stop and the bus is full and the next bus isn't for an hour, that might give you a really negative experience of using the bus service. So has there been any joined up thinking about both, I think, what you've got, the carrot and the stick, in essentially? So do you make improvements to the bus service first before you encourage people to buy their bus tickets and then maybe tax people who don't make green choices in life?
Yeah, well, I think our bus operator deserves a lot of praise, actually. Only last week, as I said, I was answering questions in a different forum where somebody said the last bus was at 7 o'clock. Well, in fact, you could get a bus to that location at 11 o'clock. And when I used to get the bus, it used to be 6:10 was the last bus. So the frequency's improved, particularly on the southern routes. The capacity's improved, and we continually monitor and measure the usage of the buses to ensure we've got the right size bus or additional buses. So the route 3...
I get that. But would you answer the question? I mean, if you're a professional who needs to be at work at a certain time and you finish work at a certain time and the bus is either is full when you try and get back on it and you've got to wait another hour, that's also the reality. So notwithstanding the improvements that have been made.
But I think generally where we've seen that happen, we've seen larger vehicles put onto those routes. And I know the bus you and I get, the number 5, there's a larger bus in the morning, there's a larger bus in the evening to manage some of those capacity challenges. When we get another 60 houses built along the route with very little parking, we're going to see bus ridership rise again. And part of the planning obligation agreement is for further investment in the bus routes along that road. So I think we are seeing investment, and it's in the bus companies' benefit to ensure there's sufficient capacity because they want to encourage people. I think an area where we must improve is in terms of communication on the buses, so telling people where they are, when they're going to get into town. That's a key thing for me to get sorted out. But you can go on the app and find out where the bus is. I was on a bus recently which was 10 minutes late, and at least half a dozen of the regular people that was on that would get that bus had chosen to go to work another way because the bus was 10 minutes late. So we have to keep on with the communication. But I do think where we've been able to increase capacity and/or frequency, we have.
So, Minister, we're going to move from carbon neutral roadmap and the climate emergency to capital delivery and long-term infrastructure planning, which also features within the common strategic priorities. And one thing that's of note is that since the last CSP review panel meeting, Investing in Jersey has since been launched. So given a lot of Investing in Jersey is about long-term capital planning and where one goes, is it possible to explain how you felt that build process of Investing in Jersey aligns with the common strategic policies agreed by the Assembly?
Well, I think it's really important, because, as I said, I've been banging the drum about infrastructure, whether that's resurfacing roads, whether that's improving sewage networks, whether that's improving or replacing existing sporting facilities. We have to have a plan. And then, of course, you've got the coastal defence, which is vital. And, we have to find a way of funding those projects without them getting changed every 4 years, when some of these projects are multi-year projects just in the planning of them. And think of the coastal protection. That's a significant project, and it's not a nice to have. If you look at the maps, our risk register, flooding is one of our highest risks on the island. The concern for flooding, so we have to invest long term, and so the Investing in Jersey programme, I think, is essential for us to give surety for some of these projects which are going to outsee governments.
So given the adjacency of some of these key pieces like coastal defence works on the climate emergency, on ensuring homes for islanders, are you satisfied with where the budget got to in funding things like coastal defences and the certainty that there will be for capital delivery on some of these key areas?
Well, listen, I think the great thing about things like the coastal defence is how we're looking long term. So we're looking at putting underneath that coastal defence services, so we can run services underneath there. So in the future, when they need to be replaced or repaired, we don't have the disruption we currently see. We're looking on top of those areas to make recreational areas, but also corridors for cycling and walking. So I think the team are doing a great job in terms of their plan and their vision. And we keep challenging them to say, is there anything else we can do there? And the other area is the potential for parking, particularly around the Hovde Par area. Can we get additional parking in part of that addition? So we're doing the work to secure the shoreline, for want of a better description, but we're looking to see what opportunities we can get there. And in terms of budget, which I'm sure is where you want me to go to, we've got the money to keep going on the project, the planning, but we need to make sure that there's a lot of work that has taken place with stakeholders and will take place with stakeholders, but by having the Investing in Jersey programme should give us the surety that we can actually do that work.
That there will be funding.
Yeah.
For that, and for because another place to note where these overlap would be the fort, and that's a piece of long-term infrastructure that aligns with revitalising in town, but the budget doesn't provide the funding to create a usable fort. It provides the funding to provide a weather-tight and watertight and safe fort. So it's just trying to understand the deliverability of the ambition that's both agreed in Investing in Jersey and the kind of the shared direction, and how this works in the budget-making process.
We're still working in terms of the design, There's been a change in the design to move the concert hall from the Gloucester Hall to the Queen's Hall. That's planned to be raised, so all of the mechanics are underneath. And I think there's an update for States members early next month, so perhaps I shouldn't tell you too much detail. But what we have to do is make the fort safe, because even if we do nothing, the cost of doing nothing is over £30 million, because we've got a structure there which has got challenges, and we've got to make it safe. So what we've done with this budget is we've put in a sum of money, £43 million, I think it is, to enable us to do works next year and in 27, by which time we'll have a full design and we'll be able to come up with detailed pricing.
Okay.
Right. I have some questions about the age-friendly infrastructure framework, and we just questioned the Environment Minister, and I think this is coming into your area. Are you ensuring that this framework is fully aligned with the CSP commitment to prepare for demographic change?
Do I need to declare an interest?
This was the Environment Minister did.
Perhaps we. There we are. Yes, clearly we need to be mindful of it, and it's. I can make light of it, but we are very conscious of that. I think the most recent piece of work I've seen is the work that DVS are doing with the parish of St Helier in trying to provide a solution for a. I'm going to call it a truck.
Buggy.
A buggy to take people around St Helier who have got challenges with mobility. And that work's also been done with the diversity and inclusion group in CLS. So there's some practical things there. Broad Street, the work we're doing in Broad Street is designed to ensure there's enough seating so people can stop and rest. We've invested in the last 12 months significantly in toilets at Balroyal and at West Park, bringing them up to a much better standard than they were before we started those works. The hopper bus is a great thing, I think, not only for the age and demographic, but for the young demographic, where we're seeing increased ridership. We've added 3 new bus stops around St Helier, but we really need to tell more people, and we're due to get, I think it's called flags, where it identifies the hopper bus stop, which I think is going to happen before I retire, which
should be going
maybe
out this week.
Maybe
It's been
working
already.
longer than I expected. But we really want to tell people about that, and all of the buses have got accessibility for everyone. So I think we are making progress. We're very conscious of the challenges as well as the opportunities it brings us. Interestingly, we tried a park and ride scheme, and it was our more senior residents who took up the park and ride scheme because they felt it was easier to park at a football pitch than in a car park. And they had their concession bus fare, so they used it. We were trying to get commuters to stop driving to town, but every silver line, every cloud.
So all these projects that you've mentioned, will they come into a delivery plan for the framework, or
I have to say, I don't know if there will be a delivery. To me, I go back to the point that was raised right at the outset about narrowing things down to just 13 priorities. And my focus is on getting things done rather than writing reports. So I challenge the team about how can we be more efficient, how can we do things simpler. And if somebody's sent away to write a report, I'd prefer they were doing some action. So I don't know if it will be collated into a report. You're going to tell me yes, Tricia?
I don't think, well, we put down in the answer to the state's question, everything we do, it's been part of business as usual for such a long time for us. So the provision of drop curbs and tactile paving, disability training for all PSV drivers, the buses being accessible, the people who undertake our street works being trained in how to accommodate people with disability to move around those roadworks, and ensuring that the barriers have tap rails so someone with a cane can follow them. The street works design where we engage with ICANN and other groups to ensure that they're accessible. So it is really has been a fundamental part of our work for a long time, which is why
Yeah, I should
St
say,
Helier and other
I
areas.
had a briefing on Friday about the public realm works we're doing, and the designer who works for us, employed by us, is constantly engaged with both ICANN and Enable to ensure that we do address the challenges that some people have. And you know, I'm quite encouraged by the work that happens in that arena.
And the Minister's provided this year alone an additional 18 blue badge spaces. We support beachability by providing areas where they can store those special wheelchairs. We comment on every planning application which we've got remit in to ensure that it is accessible.
I just wanted to ask about the relationship with the parish. You know, because actually some of the parish pavements don't have drop curbs, some of the building work that is put up actually obstructs the pavements. To what extent are you able to influence what
Well, I think the
parishes do?
team have got a good relationship with the parishes in general. Clearly, most of the work is happening here in St Helier, and I think the infrastructure team in the government have a good relationship with their colleagues at infrastructure within St Helier. Every application to put scaffold up or do works needs to go through the traffic work system, so that's recorded. But if you've got examples, then we're happy to take them out of this forum. But I think, in my experience working with particularly the parish of St Helier, I think they're up to speed with.
Pulling in the same direction.
Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely. We speak with officers of Parish St Helier daily, and we share the knowledge that we have with them.
One of the things around the infrastructure, age-friendly infrastructure framework, to create a framework that regardless if it's private, parish or state-owned or charity, what they're delivering, will deliver to the same standard. And the question would, by July 26, would we have this framework that it will not have this conversation what parish do, and they actually all need to oblige with this
Well, I think
framework?
I had a meeting last Thursday or Friday with the Constable of St Martin's, because we've got Ports of Jersey, we've got infrastructure, we've got property holdings, and we've got the parish. All have got different pieces of land.
Yeah.
And so we've committed to go away and write up a guide. I'm not sure what the terminology is, but basically a product guide. So we're not choosing out of 4 different catalogues what kind of dustbin we have or what kind of railing we have. We have a design specification for that area that we all subscribe to. And if it's all silver dustbins or blue dustbins or green dustbins, that's what it is we all go for. So we've got that expertise in-house. What we don't have is lots of money to be doing lots of things at Gorey, but what we can do is share our expertise. And it was a very short meeting, actually, because the council was pushing out an open door.
But the question, what does it need to take even further? Because the recent public hearing with the Public Accounts Committee, we questioned Ports of Jersey and SOJDC, and question was asked what you're doing with the hard borders, where the ports is finished and
Well, I
where
know
the
that
France
I know
starts.
certainly with St Helier, the team who were, road signage and guidance signage. I think we're just about there in terms of agreeing, not necessarily colours, but a formula that we all use, and so I think we are making progress in that area. And again, the team, Triss's team, have got good relationships with both of those organisations you mentioned.
So what we've done
Because
is...
here you have parish, government and both organisations, and everyone has their own
So what,
vision.
Yeah, and I think some people want to know what is a parish road and what's a government road. So that's understandable. But you can have a similar sign with a
Yes.
parish crest and with a government crest. It's about trying to, we've got every bollard available, plus about 4 extras that no one knew existed. So people go out and they choose what they like rather than choose something that's going to be consistent. And we're aiming not only at Gorey, but certainly in the work we're doing at St Helier is to reduce the amount of products that we introduce and just get a little bit more consistency. I think where you see virtual footpaths around the island that we've created in parishes, the only difference is the parish crest that's in the wooden post, and I think that's the type of standard we should be aspiring to.
What we've done is we've developed a public realm style guide, and we've consulted on that with the ports and with the parish, and we're basically learning as we do it, where it needs to be tweaked, and the aspiration is to have that at some point in planning guidance.
You mentioned about the consultation with groups like ICANN and Enable. So do you also consult with any groups representing older people's needs in general?
Yeah, I've attended the Arthritis Association. I've hosted a meeting for Blue Badge holders who predominantly are more senior residents, and I've also attended the forum in New Street, whose name escapes me.
Age Concern.
No, I think it's Older People's Forum or something, is it? It was at Age Concern building, but they had different representatives there. And I spoke to them about a range of issues, from buses to Blue Badge Parking to different things. So, I'm very happy to engage with all people like that.
Do you feel the older person's voice is getting heard properly?
Yeah, it is. And we're happy, it's no good us designing something that people aren't going to use or people aren't comfortable with. And, at times we have to make decisions, and I will go back to Broad Street because there are some people who don't like Broad Street. But interestingly, when I went to the Older People's Forum, not one of those people spoke out against Broad Street. And there are very sound commercial reasons for investing in our public realm, and at times you have to make decisions and stick to them. I think we've got to do it to the best of our ability, but more than happy to, we introduced the blue signs in Blue Badge parking bays as a result of the meeting I hosted in June last year, and we've seen anecdotally, talking to the parking control officer, we've seen less people abusing those. What we have done is increase the amount of time we spend policing. So the fines are on a par, but we invest far more time now in policing them than we did before. So we don't have a like-for-like comparison, but we believe those signs are effective, and we're trying, the parish of St Helier, introducing them to theirs. We're trying to encourage other people to do that as well. So we started within the ring road, and we're trying to, it's not a cheap process, but we think it's worth doing.
Much more
Just
visible,
to
isn't
add to Deputy Curtis's question, so there are national best practice manuals. So we designed the Better Streets manual, which obviously incorporates all of those needs of the different groups who use the street and set standards.
Okay. I think this will be the last question from me. What collaboration has taken place between infrastructure and environment and other departments such as health, education, home affairs, economic development to deliver services with inclusive outcomes? Now, I know you've mentioned about your discussions with the parish of St Helier, they work with them, but
Well, I think,
how effective is it with the other departments?
Well, I think it's reasonably so. We all have similar challenges. So, Home Affairs, we've been working with them on the drug driving limits and roadside testing, and that legislation hopefully is going to be lodged in the not too distant future. I mentioned at the outset when I was asked how I worked with other departments about the work we do on the Regeneration Steering Group, the Sports Group, the work with the Environment Minister. We do work, I would say, well together.
Any more questions?
I've got one more, since this is about out of the budget, but on the common strategic policies, and it's to do with the roadworks and events law and the new permitting and licensing. Now, this is the last time this panel will meet with you before this comes live, and a new scheme of licensing, mandatory training and permitting is coming into play. And I wanted to understand what consideration, in line with the CSPs, of reducing red tape and keeping fees, duties and charges as low as possible was considered in the decision-making process to the scheme.
Well, I think since you asked a question of the Chief Minister last week in the Assembly, we're going to have another look at it. But I would say that, it is important to reduce red tape, but Health and Safety at Law Act is not something I would scrap tomorrow. And you wouldn't let people go onto a construction site if they didn't have their ticket to operate and they knew the basic safety things. We used to have people coming in from the UK to train people up to a certain standard. That training is now carried out locally. We have, I think it was as much as 40% of obstacles in roads were unlicensed, and we're trying to coordinate where we've got disruptions in road, believe it or not. So we are going to have a look at the timing, but we have to make sure that not only is it safe for the public, but it's also safe for operators. And I'm about to go to a drop-in session at Zion about the roadworks, which are going to take around 13-15 months on St John's Main Road. In parts there, we're going to be digging 4 metres deep, so that's probably the height of this room, or close to the height of this room, and 2.5 metres wide. And anything under, I think it's over 1.2 metres, has got to be sheeted so that the trench doesn't fall in on people working in the trench. So we're going to have a look at the timing and the costs, but predominantly it's driven by health and safety requirements.
But it sounds like the CSPs are now going to be part of the conversation as to the refining of the
So
solution.
the roadworks law has been in place for 9 years, since 2016.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any other question? No. Minister, thank you for your time. Thank you for your time and thank you for your answers. And